Hey guys, you've watched the unbox and swatch. Now you're watching the first field test with the Holbein Shin Gansai watercolors. So keep watching. Today we're going to do an Etegami postcard using Acoustic Etegami paper and the Holbein Shin Gansai watercolors. I picked these watercolors up while I was in Tokyo and I got them from Sakaido. I have a reference image of a bird of paradise already pulled up. So all that's really left is to get a clean cup of water, some paper towels, and go ahead and get painting. So unfortunately, y'all can't see this gorgeous every color flower, but it should hit almost every color in this palette, which is awesome because far too many of my field tests have too big a gamut for me to really hit it all. So, given that I'm not super familiar with painting birds of paradise, which are a type of flower, I am familiar with painting flowers, I'm just gonna do a little bit of sketching first, very lightly in graphite, and then once I finish my postcard, I'll ink it with a brush pen, because that is how you do. Well, you can do it kind of any way you enjoy doing it, which is kind of the beauty of these instant and instantaneous postcards. Point is to kind of paint things in your everyday life. Unfortunately, I don't have anything in my everyday life that will quite capture all the beautiful colors. So we're just gonna have to live our best life, right? We're gonna have to live our imaginary awesome life. Our imaginary awesome life. So I want the watercolors and the illustration in your field of view so y'all can kind of see what I'm doing, see what's going on. Oh, that's too much water back. And they seem to handle quite well on Etegami paper. To be fair though, I have not tried Western style watercolors on Etegami paper, so they might handle well also. You guys could be missing out on a really fun, really easy watercolor tradition, and we just didn't even know. I mean, I think you're missing out anyway if you've never done this. I'm probably working just a smidge too wet. I usually do these with water brushes. Tend to be really decent for these. Yeah, I'm working way too wet. You see all this blending out, bleeding out? There, it is going to happen to an extent. That's part of the nature of this type of watercolor, but it is bleeding out more than I intended. So you would want to work a little drier than I'm working with this brush right now. That said, that is not a reflection on these watercolors because the colors are really nice and vibrant. It's a reflection on me grabbing the wrong brush for the job because I'm just too lazy to grab the right one. And for Etegami, you're supposed to work pretty thick. So it's almost like a gouache painting, but not really. And there isn't really a lot of color mixing done either. You kind of work directly from the palette. So you work with larger palettes that have a lot of colors rather than working with like a daisy well palette. And see, now it's so dry, it doesn't want to go on at all. And you really can't do, I mean, you can do wet into wet, but it's really more like semi-dry into semi-dry, because if you add too much water, it will just completely flood out what you're trying to do. So this is a great type of watercolor for people who maybe struggle with watercolor. They like acrylic, they get acrylic where you're working thicker, you can paint on top of things. You're also typically, rather than using like the white of the paper, because it's a very thirsty paper, it's a washy paper, you're going to use a mixing white to make your pastels. which is kind of unusual. Oh man, I like totally missed an opportunity for that blue. I'm going to come back and catch it. The goal is also to just kind of paint simply. Don't worry too much about getting caught up in every single detail. The point is really to make something that you can send to someone else, that you did yourself, which is why I think Etegami should totally catch on in the US with like stampers and card makers, because the sentiment of, you know, this is something I made for you, I'm thinking of you, I care about you, is really prevalent. And there's less of a focus on perfectionism or things looking amazing. Kind of just give it your best and roll with it, which is a sentiment I think is appealing to a lot of people. So I would love to see this style of watercolor really catch on. I don't have a good blue violet, so I'm going to mix on the fly and hopefully it'll... Hey, yeah! All right, so these are pretty mixable. Then I'm going to kind of begin filling in the background with the deep green. And what's funny is I'd really wanted to find the time to do Etegami postcards while in Japan. And I really just was so exhausted every day. I never made the time to do it. So I feel like I missed out. Just means I'll have to go back someday, right? And rectify that. I think the ability to take the time to hone a skill like drawing or like painting, I think it's really important, and I wish more people were able to do that. I know it's often a matter of being able to find that time, and most people don't have that ability because they've got other responsibilities. Especially as you get older, you find yourself wanting to learn how to do things, and there isn't the time for it. So it's one of those skill sets I wish schools would value it again, because that's sort of like the best time for someone to learn. Not the only time, not really. You can make time later on in your life, or if it's important enough to you, you can make the time. But when it's taught in schools, it kind of egalitarianizes it. More people are able to benefit from that sort of teaching instead of being reliant on taking secondary classes and having leisure time as an adult. Even as an adult who does this as part of her living, I still have a hard time finding the time to do these sort of things. I encourage you, if you have a lot of free time, or if you're someone who's younger and this is something you want to do, I encourage you to start today. Start as soon as you can, even if you're not happy with your skill level. Don't wait. It doesn't get easier. The longer you wait, it gets harder. And the same still goes if you're older. Don't put it off. Don't say next year, next year, next year. Even if all you do is you sit around with like a sketchbook at your kid's PTA meeting, you know, or while you're waiting at the doctor's office, while you're bringing the animal to the vet, whatever, like, or even if you've got a few spare minutes at your job during your lunch break, if it's something you want to learn how to do, you don't have to be the best, but I think it's nice to have that skill just for enjoyment even. And I'm pretty biased because I do this as part of my living. But I do really wish more people valued it and more people would try it. And would just take the risk. Because like, this is not the best piece of art I've ever made. And I'm not even trying for that, but you know, it's not any great shakes, but I'm enjoying it. I'm having fun. I'm talking to you guys. I'm playing with an art supply. So there's a lot just in this process that's rewarding for me that I wouldn't have access to if I'd never started learning how to draw at like 14 and then got serious about it at 22. But it's enriched my life in many ways. It's been a comfort for me in many ways, and I feel like I would miss it if I had to give it up. And even if I couldn't do it full time, which is always a looming possibility, I would pursue it for enjoyment. Well, once I got it past the initial pain, I would pursue it for enjoyment because it's made my life richer. I feel like I'm kind of overworking this for Etegami, so I can let my ink pen do a lot of the work for me later on. Or I could even go in with a finer tip synthetic brush with like the indigo and darken some of these colors up. Or do lines on some of these colors. But I hope you guys will at least think about it. I have a lot of friends who work in other industries and they draw because they love to draw, and they do comics because they love to do comics. I think that's just really incredibly admirable, because you work all day and then you come home and you start working all over again. Like, that's a tough thing to do. It takes a lot of discipline, and I think they have a lot of discipline and a lot of gumption. So I'm going to let this dry, and then I'm going to, I think, ink it with my Pentel Pigment brush pen. I think these work quite well as Etegami watercolors. They are very saturated, very bright colors, very easy to use. If they weren't so dang expensive, I would even say, well, they're $3 something at Jeff Pin's pan. So they're not like Winsor & Newton $11 half pan kind of expensive, or even their sister Holbein half pans, which are like $13 a half pan. They're very economical compared to that. But if you are a parent, I really think they would make good kids watercolors, and adult watercolors and hobbyist watercolors, but they're not inexpensive. So it's hard for me to recommend something like that at such a price point. But I am really enjoying them, and I'm excited to see how they're going to perform in the Western style watercolor test. So I'm going to let this dry all the way, and then I'm going to ink it with this. So this is still damp and cool to the touch, but it's like surface dry. So I'm going to go ahead and attempt, and possibly ruin, but attempt to ink it, because I have a feeling I saturated it so much that it's going to take forever to dry, and I'm just not that patient, y'all. So I've got my reference handy. I can go ahead and fold this up and move it out of the way a little bit. We'll just have to take it a little slow. So if you're watching this video and you never tried doing an Etegami style postcard or an actual Etegami postcard, they do use kind of a specialized paper, but you don't have to use that. You can use whatever paper you have on hand. And I challenge you to make something drawn by your own two hands. So traditional media, I know that's scary for some people. It could, and look, the end result could look terrible, but I challenge you to make something with your hands and mail it off to a loved one. Your mom, your dad, sister, brother, best friend, life partner. You could mail it to your dog. But I challenge you to make something real and physical and in the moment, and maybe even kind of ugly, and send it off to somebody or something, or some pooch or some cat you care about. Send it even to like your local library, whatever. It doesn't matter. Just, I challenge you to do it. I hope you will. It takes a lot of courage to make something for someone else. I mean, I've been drawing for 20 something years now. Yeah, 20 years now. and I've been painting for almost 10, and I still get really nervous when I'm making something like a birthday present or an engagement present or something. When I'm painting something for a friend, or if I'm doing a commission for someone of like their original character, I still get nervous. I've done this for years and I get nervous, but I'll tell you, seeing their faces is usually worth it. Sometimes people just don't react, which is a thing that can happen. And it's kind of a bummer, but you know, I didn't want to lie to you guys and be like, oh, the reaction is always wonderful. People are always happy. Like, some people are just jerks. But hopefully you can send it to a not jerk. You can send your handmade art that you made with courage and spontaneity to somebody who loves you for who you are and can value that you put time and energy into making something for just them, that they're the only person who gets to own that image, who gets to have that image in their home. There's something really powerful. That's why I love doing commissions for people. It's my chance to help make owning art accessible to a new generation of people, to make it not uncommon, not strange to have an original piece of something in your home. And I hope that at least some of the kids who I do D&D commissions for or OC commissions for will have their pets commissioned, maybe not by me, but by somebody else, or will have their kids painted someday, just to normalize owning art. It just seems like it's getting more and more unusual for people to think to even have an original anything. People don't even get their kids painted or their dogs and cats painted anymore. Just, you know, and I'm biased. I'm an artist, so I like to own art. I love commissioning other artists. I like having originals. I don't buy prints, I buy originals. So, you know, I'm definitely biased. That's what I love. I like having a real piece of art that nobody else can own, even if it's just really simple, on my walls. And almost every con, I commissioned someone to draw a Kara, and I didn't this MTAC because I was the only artist in the alley pretty much offering commissions. Okay, so I think this is done. The colors aren't quite as vibrant now that they're starting to dry as your typical Gansai Tambi style watercolors, or like the Komorebi style watercolors. So I'm excited to see how these perform in a Western style test, and I'll keep playing around with them, figuring them out. So please keep an eye on this channel, especially if you're interested in seeing how these Holbein Shin Gansai watercolors stand up for like a Western style watercolor. And whatever else I think to throw at it. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys will check out some of my other wonderful watercolor tutorials, videos, and field tests here on this channel. Please consider subscribing for more great free art instruction. If you'd like to help me continue to make this possible, please head on over to patreon.com/NatoSoup. If you like my art and you want more of it, why not read my beautiful watercolor webcomic, 7-Inch Kara? You can read it for freezies over at 7inchkara.com or 7inchkara.tumblr.com. And you guys can find links to where you can get these watercolors and where you can find more of my great stuff down in the description below. So have a great day, guys. Bye.